All right. So Laura has helped me with a couple of test runs even in the last hour, so um, maybe this won't go too badly. Um, so I have a few things in mind to do during these, um, but um, um, if someone else has some suggestions either during these sessions or at some other point before the next one. Oh, good. We have Evelyn joining us, and I don't know if Caleb, is your family there with you? Um, and I see the Ferguson boys. Oh, and there's the largest Ferguson boy. Okay, good. All right, so um, Um, but I have some things in mind that I'd like to do in these. And part of it's going to depend upon, well, obviously, uh, you all's input, but also um, the number and ages of the kids who participate. So, since we've primarily got our youngest class tonight, um, then we'll try to do some things. We'll try to do some things with them. So, for the not that the kids won't benefit from this, but for the adults, we're going to go back to something we did a couple of years ago and spend some time with 17 Bible time periods, and not only reviewing the 17 Bible time periods, but also then enlarging on the specifics that are in each time period. As we have time and continue this, we're going to do that. And then um, also, we're going to do something for those of you who have not been involved in the teaching program since we changed to the Shaping Hearts material. Was that the beginning of this past year? Is that right? Beginning of 2019?
Right.
Um, if you have not seen this, I'm going to try to share something with you. Um, this is something that is part of the, whoa, Nelly, hang on just a second. Okay. Laura, will you call Karen Lively and see if you can help her, because she's calling me, trying to Laura, were you able to hear me? I can't hear you. So if you will take care of that for me, please, so that I don't have to stop teaching in order to answer that call, or trying to teach. Okay, so back to what I was going to say. The Bible class material has something called Bible knowledge expectations, and there are there's a set of New Testament Bible knowledge expectations, and then there is a set of Old Testament Bible knowledge expectations. And as you can see, I'm going to try to highlight this. Over on the left-hand side, it's broken up according to the age level of the student, and there are just certain things that they are expected to know or do. But then there are Bible facts over on the left-hand side that are numbered, and each age adds more and more of those. And then there's a corresponding list of map facts, New Testament and Old Testament. If I can figure out how to share maps and make that effective, we might work on that as well. But I thought that depending upon the age of the students that we have participating in these various things, we might work on some Bible knowledge expectations, and maybe even get adults caught up to where our students are in the process. So that's something that I have in mind. I've got a couple of other Bible studies that are kind of interactive based, that we might, depending on how long we keep this going, that we might get into. But again, if you all have input, suggestions, I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear what you have in mind, and we'll, I'll try to incorporate those. There is Gregory Bakejian trying to log on from the West Coast. So, hey, Gregory, glad you could join us. Wait a second. That's a hotel room. You're supposed to be sleeping in the van. He can't hear me. Either that or he's going to ignore that comment. I don't need to start a marital fight on our first online Bible study. Okay. He heard me that time. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
The ladies had a time limit. Is there a number of weeks that this is allowed?
The time limit isn't the number of sessions. It's only 40 minutes per session, unless we want to pay for a premium, an upgraded service. So I don't think there is a limited number of times that you can use it. If there is, I'll have to factor that in, but I'm not aware of that if that's the case. Okay, so let's get started with some really basic stuff. But hey, we've got four members of our youngest class here. So all right. So I want to hear, especially, not that I don't want to hear everybody else, but I especially want to hear Evelyn and Hunter and Chase, and let's sing our books of the New Testament, okay? I don't know how singing works on Zoom. I know some other people who've done it. I'm getting a shake of the head by Rachel. It might be Rachel. It might be your ancient internet connection out there in the middle of nowhere. But we're gonna give this a try anyway. And even if we're all over the map, it's a good review for all of us for our books of the New Testament. Okay. So, all right, are the kiddos ready?
Ready?
All right, everybody else. All right, let's sing our books of the New Testament.
Okay.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Acts, and the letter to the Romans, First and Second Corinthians, Galatians, and Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, First and Second Thessalonians, First and Second Timothy, Titus and Philemon, Hebrews, James, First and Second Peter, First and Second and Third John, Jude and Revelation. Okay, singing doesn't work real great. Okay.
I had to tell you.
Oh,
I know. I knew you were going to say that. Okay. All right. Well, let's see if Evelyn, Hunter, and Chase can say books of the New Testament. Let's see how far we can get. Okay. All right. You ready? I'm going to get started, and I want you to say them nice and loud so everybody can hear. You ready? Matthew. What comes next? What comes after Matthew?
Mark.
And what comes after Mark? Luke. Okay. And what comes after Luke? What's the fourth one? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and
Hunter just said.
John. Very good. Okay, good. All right. Very good. Now, this may be above the level of our youngest, but Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, those are called what? What do we call those? Those four books of the Bible are called the Gospels. They're called the Gospels. Does anybody know what that means? What does gospel mean? Chase, do you know what gospel means? You know what gospel means, Chase?
Oh.
It means good news. And if it tells us good news, it's good news about who? What is the Old Testament tells us that somebody's coming, and the New Testament tells us that somebody came. Who is that somebody? It's the good news about who, Chase?
Say it again.
Did Evelyn say it? Who's it about, Evelyn? Chase is playing bashful. Who is it, Evelyn?
I can't hear you.
Jesus, that's right. That's right. It's the good news about Jesus. Okay. All right. Well, let's shift to some of our stuff for the big people. I'm going to try to do this. Oops, that's not it. There we go. All right. So I thought we would work on our 17 Bible time periods. It's been a while since we've done anything with that. And so I thought it would be good to review. And if you don't like this idea, you can blame Gregory, because Gregory really encouraged to do this as part of our online study. You're welcome, Greg. I threw you under the bus. And the other thing that the other thing that we'll do is see how much of the hand motions we remember that help kind of reinforce this as we go along. So when we get started with our 17 Bible time periods and we begin to talk about things like creation and Adam and Eve and the first sin and the story of Cain and Abel and then the birth of Seth, all of those things happened in the first Bible time period, and they all happened what?
Before the flood.
Before the flood. Okay. All right. So the hand motion that we learned for that is before the flood, like the world. This God shaping the world. That was our hand motion for that. So before the flood. And we said that involves everything from creation to Adam and Eve, to the introduction of sin into the world, to the story of Cain and Abel, the birth of Seth, and then a number of generations that transition from that Bible time period to our next Bible time period. Now, you don't have to remember everything that goes into that yet, but our first Bible time period, the first 5 chapters of the book of Genesis before the flood. So what's the first Bible time period?
Before the flood.
Before the flood. What's the first Bible time period?
Before the flood.
All right. So if the first Bible time period is before the flood, then what's the next Bible time period?
The flood.
The flood.
The flood. So our motion is like the surface of the waters, the earth being covered with water. Okay. So the flood. No, Greg, not the rains came tumbling down. The flood. The wiggling of the fingers is going to get confusing with other Bible time periods. So before the flood, the second Bible time period is
Flood.
the flood. All right. What's the one before that? Oops.
Before
the
flood.
If that's before the flood, the second one is
The
flood.
the flood. Okay. All right. So now that gets us a few more chapters into the book of Genesis. It's the story of Noah and his family and God destroying the earth by water, saving them through the flood waters, and then they come out of the ark. And God tells them to spread out and to replenish the earth, but instead, what did they decide to do?
Build a tower.
Build a tower. Is that what God wanted them to do? Evelyn, Hunter, and Chase, is that what God wanted them to do? Did God want them to build a tower and all stay in the same place? No, that's not what he wanted. And so he confused, he mixed up their languages, and that led to the next Bible time period, which is what? There, now you can wiggle your fingers, Greg. The scattering of the people. The scattering of the people. All right? The scattering of the people. And so from the Tower of Babel, we have the scattering of the people. Before that, let's start at the beginning again. Number one,
For the
Before the
flood.
flood.
before the flood. And then
After
The flood.
the flood.
flood,
And then immediately after the flood,
scattering of
scattering of the people. Good. All right. Now, as the people spread out, the Bible story kind of narrows down, and it begins to focus, particularly at first, on one man and then that man's family. And does anybody remember who that one man is? That kind of begins to be the focus beginning in about Genesis chapter 12.
Here were the 3 men who lived in tents.
So we've talked about Adam and Eve, and Cain and Abel and Seth, and Noah and his family. Who's the next big Bible character? He's a really important man. Who's next?
Say it.
All right. Somebody said it. I can't hear.
Abraham.
Abraham. That's right. Abraham. And Abraham had a special son. Does anybody remember what that special son's name was? Isaac. That's right. And Isaac had 2 sons. Hunter, do you remember either of Isaac's 2 sons? Isaac. And Isaac had 2 sons. One was named starts with an E. Esau. That's right. Esau. And what was the other one's name? Esau and Esau and Jacob. That's right. I heard somebody say Jacob. That's right. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and we call them what? What do we call them? This is our next Bible time period. The patriarchs, right? So we hold our hand out in front of us. It's kind of do when you've got a small screen. You hold your hand out in front of you like you're carrying a walking stick, like you're carrying a staff, because they were sojourners. They were just visitors in the land. And so the patriarchs, right? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Jacob had, does anybody remember how many sons Jacob had?
How many sons did Jacob have? Jacob had?
He had a bunch. How many did he have? 12. That's right. That's right. He had 12 sons. That's right. And so this is the period of the patriarchs. All right. So let's see how we're doing. What's the first one? Where did we start?
Before the flood.
Before the flood. Good. And then
The flood.
the flood. Good. What was next?
Scattering.
Scattering of the people.
Scattering of the people. Good. And then the patriarchs.
Patriarchs.
All right. Now let's see how good we are, and let's see if we can do it backwards. So we're up to the patriarchs. All right. If we back up from Abraham, what's the next Bible time period?
Scattering of the people.
The
Scattering
scattering of the
of the
people.
Gathering of the people.
We back up one more before the scattering of the people, the story of Noah and his family,
The flood.
the
The
flood,
Flood.
and then what was the first one?
Before the flood.
Everything
The flood.
Uh,
For the flood.
before the flood.
Before
All right, so let's do that again.
For the
the
For
flood.
the flood,
the
the
flood.
flood, the scattering of
Gathering of the people.
the patriarchs.
Patriarchs.
And
All right.
Just
So the
one.
patriarchs are Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the 12 sons of Jacob, and especially there's one son that is the focus of the story in the last part of the book of Genesis. Which of the 12 sons is the focus of the story in the last part of the book of Genesis? He was sold by his brothers and he went down to another place because they didn't like him very much. They sold him into slavery. Who did they sell into slavery? Joseph. That's right.
That's right.
The story of Joseph. And where did Joseph go as a slave? What land did he go to? Where did he live? Egypt. That's right. And eventually, all of his family went down to Egypt to join him. Right? They all went down to Egypt. But did God plan for them to stay in Egypt? Is that where God wanted his people? Nope, that's not where God wanted his people. And so he raised up Moses and Moses' brother Aaron
Moses?
to lead the people.
Moses?
To lead the people. And this brings us to our next Bible time period when Israel exited, when they left Egypt. And so when we say they exited, that reminds us the next Bible time period is what?
The Exodus.
The Exodus. And so, like Moses parted the waters of the Red Sea, the Exodus. Now, for all of the adults who are participating, this is more than just the book of Exodus. There are other things that fall into this Bible time period, like Leviticus and part of Numbers and Deuteronomy, and so all of this is part of this period. So don't confuse this Bible time period with just the book of the Bible. But this Bible time period is the Exodus from Egypt. All right. So let's back up and start with number one. Number one is before the flood. And then the next one is the flood. After the flood, we have a period of
Scattering of the people.
oops, the scattering of the people. I did the wrong hand motion. Got ahead of myself. The scattering of the people. Then
This way.
the patriarchs. All right. In the patriarchs, that gets the people down into Egypt. So what comes next?
The Exodus.
The Exodus.
The Exodus from Egypt. The Exodus from Egypt. All right. Now, I actually got just a little bit ahead of myself in some of the things that I included in the Exodus Bible time period. Actually, some of what I mentioned is not just in Exodus, but after the Exodus from Egypt, the people rebelled and they refused to go into the land when God wanted them to go into the land. And so when they didn't do what God wanted them to do, how did he punish them? For 40 years, he made them do what? What did they do for 40 years?
Wandering on the wilderness.
Wandering in the wilderness.
The wilderness.
That's right. So we've got our little man walking all over the wilderness. Okay? Wandering in the wilderness. That's our next Bible time period. It covers everything from the time that they refused to go into the land all the way through the events of Deuteronomy and actually the first part of the very first part of the book of Joshua. So wandering in the wilderness. All right. After they wandered in the wilderness, I'm going to have to speed up a little bit, or we're not going to get all the way. Well, we may not get to 17 tonight, but that's okay. Wandering in the wilderness. Okay. All right. So after they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, they finally got to go where? Where did they get to go after wandering in the wilderness for 40 years? They finally got to go where? What kind of land?
Land of Canaan.
The land of Canaan, the promised land, right? God promised to give them land in Canaan, and they finally got to go into the promised land, right? They finally got to go into the promised land, right? Oops, I just messed up something on my screen.
This one is how we do Canaan. Watch. It's like a bow and arrow. Can you shoot?
Sorry about that. Okay, so they got to go into the promised land of Canaan, the promised land. And so our next Bible time period is the invasion and conquest of the land. Anybody? There you go, Gregory. Gregory the archer remembers that one. So draw back the bow and arrow and let it go. The invasion and conquest of the land. Hey, Aaron, I didn't know you were there. I saw your grandparents, but I didn't know you were there. Good. Okay. So the invasion and conquest of the land. That's the next Bible time period. All right. All right. So let's see what we remember. So we start with
Before the flood.
before the flood.
Flood.
All right. If the first one is before the flood, it's logical. It makes sense. The next one is
Flood.
the flood. Good. And after the flood, sorry, I just got a notification. They've given us more time. Okay.
Hey.
So I won't abuse the privilege because I promised it was 40 minutes. So I won't.
Your reputation precedes you.
Thanks, Alan.
They must have been impressed.
Sorry.
Maybe someone is watching the Zoom servers and learning something. That makes me want to shift gears and do something evangelistic. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. It just popped up. Could you all see that on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Because it popped up in the middle of my screen. It was very distracting. Okay. So before the flood, after the flood, God wanted the people to do what?
Move apart.
Wanted them to scatter.
Scattering
So
of
he
the
had to
people.
make the
Oh, that's-
scattering of the people.
Fingers.
And then
We'll put
that
that down.
and that brings us to the stories of men like Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and we call that
Patriarchs.
Patriarchs.
the patriarchs. Good. During the time of the patriarchs in the days of Joseph, they went down to Egypt, but that's not where God wanted to leave them. And so that brings us to the next one, which is
Exodus.
the Exodus, right?
Mhm.
The Exodus from Egypt. Good. And then after the Exodus, they spent 40 years
In the wilderness.
Wandering in the wilderness.
wandering in the wilderness. And after 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, they were finally able
You
to
should
go
know.
to the land. And that brings us to the invasion
Invasion
and conquest of
of
the land. The invasion and conquest of the land. All right. All right. Let's see how good we are. Let's do them backwards. So the last one was the invasion and conquest of the land. But before they could go in and take the land, they had to do what?
Wandering in the
Wander in the
wilderness.
wilderness for 40 years. Before they could wander in the wilderness, they were still in Egypt, So there first had to be the Exodus from
Exodus.
Egypt. Now, when did they go down to Egypt? That was in the days of the patriarchs.
The stick.
In the days of the patriarchs. Before we have the stories of the patriarchs, we have the scattering of the people
The people.
Yeah.
that happened right after the
Flood.
flood, and everything else is
Before the
Before the
flood.
flood.
before the flood. Good. All right, so let's just run through those, straight through them. The first Bible time period is
Before the flood.
before the flood.
Flood.
The second is
The
The
flood.
flood.
the flood. The third is
Scattering of the people.
scattering of the
Yeah.
people. The
Mhm.
fourth is
Wandering.
Patriarch.
Patriarchs.
patriarchs. Number 5,
Wandering.
The Exodus.
Exodus.
Thought I lost everybody there for a minute. We're getting a little bit slow. Okay, the Exodus. All right. right. After the Exodus, 40 years of
Wandering in the
Wandering in the
wilderness.
wandering in
wilderness.
the wilderness, and after 40 years of wandering in the wilderness,
Invasion and conquest.
Invasion
of
and
the land.
conquest of the
the
land.
invasion and conquest of the land. Now, they invaded and conquered the land under the leadership of who? Does anybody remember? After Moses and Aaron, who led the people of Israel to invade and conquer the land?
Joshua.
Oh, I told you.
Joshua. That's right. Joshua. And as long as Joshua led the people, they served the Lord. But after Joshua, not long after Joshua, the people started going astray. And they would leave the Lord. They wouldn't do what God wanted them to do. God would punish them. But then when they would ask for help, God would bring a deliverer. He would bring someone to help them. And those leaders of Israel are called what? What were they called? The
Judges.
judges. That's right. Now, I know our youngest students know that. I had a little birdie that told me that you've talked about the judges. That's our next Bible time period. Number 8, the judges. And a little birdie told me that you all are really good and you can name all of the judges. So I want to hear you. So Hunter and Chase and Evie and Evie, can you name the judges for us? I'll get you started. The first one is Othniel. And Chase, I know you know them. All right, Chase, what's the first one? Othniel. And who's next? It's been a while since you've been in class to do them, hadn't it? Othniel, and then Ehud. And then who's next? Othniel, Ehud, Shamgar. That's right. And then Deborah. Gideon, right? A big name. Abimelech.
You do it?
Othniel, Ehud, Shamgar, Deborah, Gideon, Abimelech. Who's next? Tola. And then
Jacob.
No, not Jacob. That's okay. It starts with a J. Jer, Tola, Jer. And then another
Judge.
Another judge. That's right. What's his name? Tola Jer
Jake.
Jephthah.
Jake.
And then
The word.
that's okay. You're doing great. You're doing so good. So Othniel, Ehud, Shamgar, Deborah, Gideon, Abimelech, Tola, Jer, Jephthah. Who's next?
Ib.
Ibzan. Ibzan. Elon. Say them with me. I'll help you out. Say them with me. Elon. Say it. Say Elon. I can't hear you. Elon. That's right. Okay. Sorry, I guess I deserve that. Okay. Elon. Abdon.
Captain.
Samson. Eli. Samuel. All right, adults. Now, I really want to sing the song because that's how I can remember all of them, but that was not great the last time we tried to sing. Yes, Rachel, I'm waving the white flag on that one. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's say our judges. Othniel,
Neil,
Ehud,
Ehud,
Shamgar,
Shamgar,
Deborah,
Deborah,
Gideon,
Gideon,
Abimelech,
Abimelech,
Tola,
Tola,
Jer,
Air,
Jephthah,
Jephthah,
Ibzan,
Ibzan,
or Ibzan. Sorry, I said Ibzan. Ibzan,
Ibzan,
Elon,
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 Abdon,
Abnon,
Samson,
Samson,
Eli,
Eli,
and Samuel.
Samuel.
So there's 15 of them. Abimelech was not technically a judge, but he was a leader of Israel during that time. We won't get into all of those details, but that's the period of the judges. So the number 8, the Bible time period is the judges. All right. So let's review those 8 and then we'll do the rest of them next time. Okay? All right. So take them off the screen and I'm going to sit here and be quiet and try to control my hands and see how you do. So the first one is, I'll just give you the first word and see how it goes. Before.
the flood,
Flood,
All right.
The flood,
Flood.
scattering of the people,
Scattering of the people. Good.
patriarch,
patriarchs,
the Exodus,
Exodus. Right. In the patriarchs, they went down into Egypt. Now the Exodus. Good.
wandering in the wilderness,
wandering in the wilderness,
Wandering in the wilderness.
invasion and conquest of the land,
Invasion and conquest of the land.
judges,
Judges. Good. Let's do it one more time before we quit for the night.
One more time.
Before the flood,
Before the flood,
the flood,
flood,
the scattering of
scattering of the people,
the patriarch,
patriarchs,
the Exodus,
Exodus,
this,
wandering in the
wandering in the
wilderness,
wilderness,
the invasion and
invasion and
conquest
conquest of the land,
of the land, the judges.
judges.
Good.
Oklahoma,
So,
like this.
and I hope this is coming back to you as we review this, because when we learn them, we can tell the Bible story. If we can remember 17 points, if we can remember 17 points and they all logically connect one to the next, if we can remember 17 points, we can tell the entire Bible story. That's just really cool. And then we can, as we study bits and pieces, we have a place in the story to put it. We have a way of organizing and remembering Bible events and people and places. And so that's really good. Okay. So I will we'll stop there and we'll do we got through 8, so that leaves 9 for next Sunday. And I hope this format works. We didn't really have any technical trouble. I think everybody got logged on. Maybe a few more will join us. As you have opportunity to talk to others in the group, encourage them to join us, because I'd love to keep this going as long as we're not able to meet on Sunday nights and Wednesday nights. Not only feedback about material, but one of the things that we talked about was the possibility of doing this not only on Sunday nights, but also on Wednesday nights. And so we don't have to make a decision about that immediately, but let's do this for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And if you all want to add Wednesday nights and continue doing this, obviously that would be great and be glad to do it. So just share your feedback, shoot me an email, text message, give me a call, whatever works for you. So thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate it. I think that, well, at least on my end, it went well. You all may not think so, but at least on my end, it went well for the first go round. So, please hold the applause.
Thank you.
I'm really glad to do it. It's not the same as being together, but it's a way for us to keep the spiritual going even when we're a little bit out of sorts. So anyway, hope you all have a great week. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Jeremy.
All right. Thank you all.
Everybody.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.